What if I told you the past literally doesn't dictate your future? In fact, let's start with a really uncomfortable question. What if your past traumas don't actually exist? Sounds totally outrageous, right? We're so used to believing our past wounds define exactly who we are today. But what if that entire way of thinking is just a trap we've built for ourselves?
Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into the massive Japanese phenomenon, the courage to be disliked, by Ichiro Kashimi and Fumitake Koga. It's all based on the theories of Alfred Adler. Now, Adler is one of the three giants of psychology, right up there with Freud and Jung. But fair warning, his approach is going to completely dismantle everything you thought you knew about psychology, your past, and ultimately your own happiness.
We've got a very clear roadmap for this today. First, the illusion of past trauma. Second, why we create anger. Third, the choice to be unhappy. Fourth, the power of current goals. Fifth, courage for personal change. And finally, freedom to choose happiness.
Section 1. The Illusion of Past Trauma. Adlerian Psychology.
Okay, to grasp this first, incredibly shocking claim, we have to look at a massive difference between two core concepts. On one hand, you have Freud's idea of etiology, which is basically the study of causation. Freud tells us the past dictates the present. You were hurt back then, so you suffer now. Makes sense, right? But Adler completely flips this with teleology, the study of purpose. Adler argues we aren't driven by past causes at all. Instead, we're driven by present goals. So your behavior right now, it isn't some uncontrollable reaction to your past. It's a deliberate action you're taking to achieve a goal you have right in this very moment.
This quote brilliantly captures Adler's whole philosophy. He said, "No experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure. We do not suffer from the shock of our experiences." The really profound takeaway here is that events themselves do not shape us, not at all. It's the meaning we actively assign to those past events that dictates our present. We aren't just handed our lives. We actually choose how we live based on what suits our current purposes.
Section 2. Why we create anger. Emotions as tools.
So if we're acting based on present goals, we have to completely rethink our negative emotions. Are they really uncontrollable reactions, or are they carefully fabricated tools? Imagine a guy sitting in a coffee shop, and a waiter accidentally spills coffee all over his nice brand new jacket. The guy instantly flies into a massive rage and starts screaming at the waiter. Now, Freudian psychology would say, well, the spilled coffee caused the anger. But Adler? Adler says absolutely not. The man's goal was to make the waiter submit and fix the problem immediately. To do that without having to patiently explain himself, he fabricated the emotion of anger to use as a tool. The anger wasn't an impulse, it was a rapid, calculated sequence to assert dominance.
If you're sitting there doubting that anger is just a tool, think about this classic scenario. A mother is screaming at her daughter, just a furious, top-of-her-lungs argument. Suddenly, the phone rings. It's the daughter's homeroom teacher. Instantly, the mother drops the rage, picks up the phone, and speaks politely for 5 minutes like she's a totally different person. The second she hangs up, she immediately goes right back to screaming at her daughter. See, anger is just a communication tool. You can shelve it and retrieve it the exact moment it serves your goals.
Section 3. The choice to be unhappy. Choosing suffering.
Because look, if anger is just a fabricated tool we use, we have to ask a really uncomfortable question about our much deeper suffering. Why would someone consciously choose to be unhappy right now? The book gives us an example of a young man who has locked himself in his room for years. He suffers from terrible anxiety, literally physically shakes if he even tries to go outside. He genuinely says he wants to change but just can't. But from Adler's perspective, he isn't a victim of past bullying or trauma. No, he has a hidden goal.
The crucial puzzle to solve here is figuring out what that hidden goal actually is. By staying shut in his room, this recluse gets his parents' undivided attention. They worry about him constantly. They handle him with extreme care. Plus, by never stepping outside, he completely avoids the risk of ever being rejected by society. He uses his misfortune to become a special being. He is actively manufacturing real physical anxiety and fear as a tool to achieve his goal of staying safely inside.
Now, you're probably thinking, why on earth would anyone choose that kind of pain? To get this, we need to look at the Greek word agathon, which translates to good, but not in a moral, doing the right thing kind of way. It simply means beneficial to oneself. No one chooses pure suffering just for the sake of it. If we're unhappy right now, it's because at some point we subconsciously judged that adopting that unhappiness was somehow beneficial to us. It protected us, gave us an excuse, or made us feel special.
Section 4. The Power of Your Current Goals. Your chosen lifestyle.
Let's explore exactly how our goals lock us into our current identities.
Adler uses this term, lifestyle, to describe what you and I would normally just call personality or disposition. It's your worldview, your tendencies of thought and action. The truly radical part of Adler's theory is that you weren't born with your personality. You unconsciously chose it, usually around the age of 10, based on your environment and what you felt would be most beneficial to you at the time.
Because we chose our lifestyle specifically to protect ourselves. Our current goals are often the exact things holding us back. Take the classic aspiring novelist. He constantly talks about wanting to write a book, but claims he's just too busy with work. Adlerian psychology points out a harsh truth. His real goal isn't to write a book. His goal is to avoid criticism. By never actually writing, he protects the what-if possibility. He gets to live in a safe little fantasy where he might be a secret genius, completely protected from the reality of potentially writing a mediocre novel.
Section 5. Courage for personal change. Step into the unknown.
Now here is where things get really interesting, because here is the solution. If we unconsciously chose our lifestyle in the past, that means we hold the absolute power to choose a new one today. So why don't people change? Well, because it's terrifying. Think of your current lifestyle like driving a really old rattling car. It might be uncomfortable, the AC is broken, it stalls out a lot, but it's familiar. You know its quirks. Choosing a totally new lifestyle means stepping into the absolute unknown. People constantly decide not to change because the familiar pain of the present feels so much safer than the terrifying unpredictability of the unknown.
And that brings us to the most empathetic yet firm diagnosis in Adlerian psychology. You are not broken by your past. You are not permanently damaged by trauma. Instead, as Adler bluntly puts it, the issue here is not one of ability, but simply that one has lost the courage to face one's tasks. Let that sink in. To change, you don't need to spend years digging through your past. You simply need to find the courage to face the anxiety of stepping out of your familiar misery.
Section 6. Freedom to choose happiness. Reclaiming your courage.
This brings us to our final act. How do we actually reclaim that courage? Well, true freedom isn't just doing whatever you want or being a total slave to your impulses. As the source material points out, living like a stone rolling downhill, just following your natural desire for everyone to like you, is actually a form of slavery. Real freedom is having the immense strength to push yourself up the hill. It requires separating your life tasks from the tasks of others, letting go of the desperate need for recognition, and ultimately having the courage to be disliked.
So how do we actively find happiness? Adler maps out 3 very clear, actionable steps. First, self-acceptance. Accept the equipment you were born with and focus only on what you actually have the power to change. Second, confidence in others. Stop treating people like enemies in some giant competition. Treat them as comrades and build equal horizontal relationships. And third, contribution to others. True happiness comes from the deep feeling that you are beneficial to your community. This totally shifts your focus away from seeking external validation and toward genuine, meaningful connection. To pull this off, we have to completely shift how we view time. We usually think of life as a solid line leading to some future destination, right? Like we're climbing to the summit of a mountain. But life is actually just a series of disconnected moments. Imagine a blindingly bright spotlight shining on a dark theater stage. If you shine that light intensely on the here and now, you literally cannot see the past and you cannot see the future.
This is the absolute emotional peak of Adler's philosophy. You are living in the here and now. The past does not exist. It has absolutely zero power over you unless you actively choose to give it power. And the future? It's a completely blank page. You do not have to wait to be healed. You don't have to wait for your circumstances to magically change. You can be happy right here, right now, simply by dancing earnestly in this present moment. If your life really is a blank page starting right this second, and you are no longer bound by the invisible chains of your past traumas, then the power is entirely in your hands. You already have the courage. So I want to leave you with this one question to think about. What new lifestyle will you choose today?